Let's face it, if you're a man, then you are probably dealing with problems and challenges with women. Now, I've got some good news and some bad news for you. Your success with women literally boils down to one thing. The bad news is, if you don't have it, nothing else will work. All of the money, good looks, and all of the best pickup and game skills out there will fail without you mastering this one thing. And that one thing is frame. The answers to ending your pain and suffering and to start living an amazing life with women is just one click away. Click the link and let's get started. Are you? All right, here we are. How's everybody doing? We got a thanks for the good work, Paul. This is the flip phone guy who you helped not flip out on his brother. Well, good. I'm glad I helped you. I'm glad I helped you. I'm here to help, guys. I'm here to help. Welcome to this pod class. We usually do it on Tuesdays at noon, so that's where we'll be back again next week. I just had to be away for a little bit for the weekend, so thank you very much. And got my coffee and I'm ready to go. All right, so yeah, but we're gonna dive into a very controversial topic. It's kind of funny how triggering this topic is for people who don't watch my content, people who don't understand what I'm doing. You know, they'll only look at titles, they'll only look at some of the stuff that ends up triggering people, and then they get assumptions about me and what I'm having to say without actually listening to what I have to say, which, you know, some might say that that's, well, wasn't that a me problem with how I may be marketing the stuff? But maybe the problem is, though, is that people generally don't want to fix or help themselves. And people are attracted to really divisive messages and attracted to what, you know, a couple of my friends have called the blood sport. You know, if we pit two people against each other on a podcast and have them fight each other, you know, and have a debate, quote unquote, where, you know, people are just yelling back and forth, you know, that's entertaining. Jerry Springer style stuff is entertaining. That's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the views. Now, the other thing too is, okay, if you are on message and you understand that I am helping men and women have better, healthier relationships, and I tend to advise and coach men through courses and through individual consults, though I do coach couples and I do coach women as well, I tend to focus mainly on men. So this is a male-driven audience, male-driven channel with a small percentage of females, right? And I, if I say something like last week where I talked about she should do your dishes, let's think about that for a minute. Why would that be so triggering? Someone sees someone like me saying she should do your dishes, they assume that I'm an abusive male telling you to be an abusive male partner, right? Because the word abuse is thrown around like crazy without any real definition of what that means anymore. And that becomes the immediate assumption. Why is that immediate assumption? And why would I have that, you know, that video in the first place? By the way, I had follow-up videos too, which were comical, and one of them had me doing the dishes. All right, so we're doing a little social experiment here, right? And the reason, here's what I noticed. People largely ignored or died down on the funny counter messages I had with me doing dishes, because they want to be triggered. So people want to feel that triggered feeling and feel like they have to fight, you know, that they have to fight something on the internet. It gives people a sense of self-worth, right? Gives you a sense of, you know, accomplishment, a little dopamine rise to go, well, this person said this and that's BS and that's abusive. That's that. I'm going to post about it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to comment. Right. And so there's your dopamine rush. Right. But what a lot of most people are doing is they're addicted to those internet dopamine rushes with internet arguments, and they're not using that dopamine to make their lives better. They're not using that dopamine to learn better skills, to be a better human being, to work on their mental health, to work on their emotional self-control, to work on doing good for others. Instead, they're turning to the internet for dopamine rushes and from things that they think might be divisive or counter narrative to their safe world theories or beliefs. So the idea that a woman should do the dishes and a guy like me saying it, I embody for some people the guy that, bullied them in high school, the Chad that pumped and dumped them, or maybe even an abusive partner, whatever it is, whatever their image is of a bad male, I embody that image for them. No matter how kind and nice I can be, and no matter how, fair I can be, and no matter how much I actually care about people and help people, which, by the way, those things are true. Okay. Because of my image and because I'm male, people have whatever negative thoughts and feelings they have on males and masculinity, they project that on me as the internet character, Now, getting to know my content, if they get to know me in person, that all goes away. But I am the archetype of the toxic male for a lot of these people. And so I don't have to do a whole lot. In fact, I've had people get triggered and upset with very normal videos, right? Or very normal, like very non-divisive, not controversial topics, not controversial comments, maybe a post and a photo and something that shouldn't be controversial. And men and women are upset. Not all, of course, but just a few. Okay. And they're really loud a lot of times. And so, yeah, it's pretty crazy and mind blowing for me because I don't pay attention to a lot of the internet nonsense. You know what I mean? I really don't. And so, yeah, it's just now part of what I insulate myself from those things, as should you. And so when I see people participating in it, it's just insane to me. But we'll address that stuff. But so why would I have then for that part of my marketing? Because it sends a message, doesn't it? It sends a message that, and it proves time and time again that masculinity is painted as a cartoon of what maybe masculinity should be seen as. And it's painted as this divisive thing, as this bad thing. And that anything that defers to things that are, to males or masculine traits or behaviors or any of those things is on a large part of society sees those things as threats and have been conditioned or trained to have, beliefs that these are bad things, right? Masculinity is bad. Masculinity is demonized. Femininity is good. Femininity is not demonized, except for by maybe smaller circles. But the large populace does not demonize necessarily femininity. It's masculinity that gets it. How do we know that? Because if I say that she should do the dishes for you in a short video, right, like I did last week, people are triggered. People are upset. If I say, you should do the dishes for her as a guy, or I do the next one shows me doing the dishes and making fun of the whole concept, right? Nobody's really that upset. You see what I mean? And so when people are triggered by the idea that, oh my gosh, a woman should do some housework that's considered even to some as abusive, right? That's crazy, isn't it? Think about how crazy that is. But the idea that I should maybe go, I'm going to go clean something up around the house. Well, that's normal. You should do that. You should do that as a guy, right? And so it just tells you where we're at socially, doesn't it? You know, and that's why we're gonna cover this topic, because I want to cover this in a different way, because I think that because of all of this divisiveness, demonization of masculinity, and the way that people are approaching relationships, it's clearly flawed because people are not happy. And division of labor, which is what the topic is today, I think is a really misunderstood thing. It's misunderstood, I think, in manosphere and red pill spaces too, not just the mainstream spaces. Okay. So we're going to break this down and figure out what that means, because this division of labor stuff can be a point of conflict. It shouldn't be. It seems like it's minor, but it can be a point of conflict for people who are trying to have healthy relationships, especially people who are cohabitating. And it's not just the chores themselves or the labor that we're talking about, but it's the mindset that's behind, what goes into doing things around the house, or really what it boils down to is doing things for your partner, right? There's a polluted mindset behind what it means to do something for the benefit of the relationship, or to do something for your partner, for your girlfriend, or for your girl to do something for her boyfriend or her husband, or for the guy to do something for a wife. There's a very polluted, goofy misunderstanding of how to approach this divisional labor topic. And I think it's prevalent everywhere. So I may say some things here that, if you're coming, depending on where you're coming from, you're going to maybe disagree with it. I ask you to remove your safe world theory, because chances are you don't know what you're doing, and people are not having healthy relationships. And when they say they are, it's usually a cap. Most people who say they're having happy relationships, and I'm not saying all people, of course, but I'm saying most people, it's a cap. And what ends up happening is years later, when that relationship breaks up, they're coming to me for advice. It happens time and time again. Arrogance is a killer for your relationships. Just because your girl or your wife is happy with you today, that doesn't mean that that's going to last. Because if you have no understanding of male, female, and relationship dynamics, you're not going to be able to maintain that happiness. Now, maintaining the happiness and having healthy relationships, well, that has to do with frame. The advertisement in the beginning of this is my frame and seduction mastermind group and course material. It is over 100 hours of course material. Still more needs to be built. Zoom calls every single week, and discounts on one-on-one sessions and different things. So you'd work with me, and you'd work with a group of guys who are all high performers, all leveling up areas of their life. You would get a chance to be in that group and work with us for a year. There are a few seats open right now. And so that link is going to be in the description. That advertisement was there. If you click on that link, you'll have a sales page, and from there you can read all about it. Okay. You could also click on there's a free video webinar on frame. So even if you don't do the course and can't do the year-long program with me, the material on frame is extremely valuable, right? And so that one, and it's not just sales stuff, it is sales video or something. It's actually actionable and useful information for you. So go ahead and click on that at some point, and maybe schedule a consult, free consult, to see if you're a good choice or fit for that. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And then we do have, of course, the 60-day mindset inner game boot camp. All right. And so we got Ozzy here, who scheduled his session for that, and to see, if he's a good candidate for getting into that. So that's good as well. All those things are on the website. All right. So, and links are in the description. So now let's get into the topic at hand here. So, I want to start, actually with something a little different than even the division of labor. Let's talk about white knights for a second. A little Starbucks. My girlfriend just picked me up some Starbucks, and we're going to talk about my girlfriend for a minute. Not that I ever want to present her or talk about her on YouTube or anything, because it's weird. Kind of try to keep my relationships private, but it's funny. Like, this kind of recently happened, and I'm going to mention it. So posting normal, like, I post normal things usually on my Facebook. All right. Regarding my relationship, because, I'm in a very public environment with, a lot of different people having access to me and seeing me on the internet. Even with not a huge, massive following, I still have a very loyal and big enough following where I get a lot of men and a lot of women on my social media. There's a lot of women who show up to places when I go to places. There's a lot of women around, and so that's tough for somebody to handle, when they're in a relationship with somebody like that, even if it's, even if it's not like completely, even those who do like harems and stuff and aren't completely not monogamous, even if you're just dating somebody, it's still like they don't want to think that they're this disposable person, and that you can just, it's hard for a girl, to know that there's a lot of interests like that around, and call it status, call it what you will, but it's hard for a girl, right? So, my relationship's important to me, and she's in it, and she's earned her place, earned the right to be there. She's a person who I'm in a relationship with, so I naturally will post little things here and there when, she made me, I had a really tough work day last week with consults, back-to-back appointments. She made my food for the day. She helped me around the house. She was a great asset to me. She was a great compliment to my life that, always, but that day particularly, she was a huge help to me, and so I posted, like, I appreciate basically an appreciation post for my girlfriend, and, showed the sandwich she made me. Right now, this should not be a triggering thing because we're getting into division of labor. This is related. This should not be something that should trigger people to be upset because my girlfriend made me a sandwich. I didn't post, yeah, bitch, make me a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't post anything crazy, like, or disrespectful or disregarding to my person that I'm with. They don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't sit here and go like, oh, this is what you should get. Girls making new sandwiches, they'll make me a sandwich meme, right? Like, it wasn't even about that. It was just about, I appreciate that my girl is doing this. By posting those things, it signals out to women out there that, hey, I got a girl, so all these girls that might want to drop in my DMs or, stalk my pages or try to meet up with me or whatever. It's like, you're going to have to go through my girl, right? Like that. There's a relationship barrier that I have. All right. And so that's fine. And that's what I recommend, guys who are in LTRs. And again, I'm making this statement so that you understand, even if it's a monogamous LTR or if it's some level of openness, even in that, there are barriers to other people outside the relationship, or there is no relationship. And so that's a healthy thing. And I teach men and women how to do that in a healthy way and how to have those boundaries and barriers and where they should be. Because in the world of, woke mind virus going on, and then the world of, nonsense clown world we live in, boundaries don't exist, right? Standards of behavior, those don't exist either. Everything's a freaking chaos, right? Well, guess what? Chaos is not, and zero boundaries is not the recipe for having healthy, happy relationships. So anyway, it sends that signal when I put those little posts. It's not simping for your girl. It's called appreciation and gratitude. You guys can't understand the difference between simping and appreciating somebody who you're actually in a relationship with, then you got a lot more education to do. And clearly you're not having sex with women on a regular basis or in any kind of regular relationship with women, if that's what you think. Okay. So for those who might think that, but so anyways, I put that stuff out there for that reason, right? Because it does let people know, hey, I'm in this thing. And that's something her and I talked about too, you know? So pictures that might have us in it. Now there's different ways to go about this. I could keep her completely away from, keep her secret to preserve her identity, which is one technique. And certainly a good one. I know people who do that. That can be a good answer because it keeps her separate, from this internet world of goofy people that, there's a lot of you guys who listen to me and who appreciate messages and are making your lives better, but there's a lot of goofy weirdos too, and those goofy weirdos, some of those weirdos can be dangerous, toxic, and problematic. And I'm going to get into that in a second, you insulate some of that. They can always find you. I mean, look at Rollo Tomasi, for example. I work with him on Rule Zero. He's been married 25 years, has a daughter. He's kept her and his daughter away from his brand. And what do? They doxed him anyway, right? They find these people will dig into stuff, even with he's using a surname. He's using a pen name. He doesn't even use his real name. And yet they dig into his stuff and they find his real name. They find, and they find pictures of his family, and then they blast pictures of his family all over the internet, for toxic and divisive reasons. And that's quite frankly a bit dangerous. So you can insulate your girl and your family, as I do. Like, I don't post pictures of my kid, if you notice. You can insulate that from the internet, but if people want to find it and are divisive enough, they will, and so that's that, that's that issue. So, but that is a technique. And my last girlfriend, we kept her identity separate from my brand because what she did for a living, we didn't want those two things to cross into each other, but what you lose then is the benefit of demonstrating that you're in a relationship on social media. And so now I am a public figure on doing podcasts and doing, channels and having a public, blue check marks on all my pages. And yet, I'm not posting pictures of the person I'm with. So that invites a lot of female attention. You know what I mean? That's the downfall of that, is that if I'm not posting that sandwich, I'm going to get more female attention from women who might think that I'm open to, to disregarding my partner to go with them. We're not going to say adding them into the bedroom scenario. We're not going to talk about anything like that. We're going to just keep it like that. Right. And so, yeah, that's so, but now with my girl, she's not big on social media. Like, she has a Facebook account and she, communicates with people, but she was formerly a model. She had won awards for modeling. We're not talking just an Instagram model. Okay. Like, she had modeling contracts, worked for clothing companies and stuff like that. She didn't like the business, got out of it. She's very attractive. And so her face and her picture is out there. It's been used, for different things. So for her, she's okay with her image being, on my pages because it demonstrates, hey, I'm with this person, right? She wants to be tagged when we do stuff together versus kept a secret. And you know what? I am happy to do that because I'm not, it's not like I'm not wanting to, I'm not trying to hide who I'm with. But the downside of that then is then people see her identity, even though they could find that out anyway, and docs and stuff like that, they get to there's weirdos that'll see her identity. The upside is, though, I'm not, the weirdos know that I'm not signaling that I'm single. Right. So that's another thing. Like, when I first started seeing her, all of these people who were trying to get her to not see me, because that's what happens. Guys who would rather be with her are going to try to, have their little things to say. they all would want to point out and say like, oh, and also, by the way, jealous girlfriends who, and I say jealous because their boyfriends and the guys they're with aren't me. Okay. Whether they're attracted to me or not, it's not the point. It's what I offer a girl in a relationship. Just quite a lot, and it's not just resources, it's literally everything she could want. So that's not the kind of relationships they're having. So women get jealous and they try to be like, some of the more toxic types will try to say, oh, this guy, plus the nature of my channel, oh, this guy, he's got all these, you can't see him, or you shouldn't see this guy, whatever, right? And guys will try to say that stuff too. So in the beginning, when she wasn't on my social media, well, yeah, she had an influx of people saying, well, I'm not putting her on my social media, so I must be cheating on her. I must be doing all these divisive things or whatever, right? And so that mitigates that having her on there. So, okay, so that's that, because a lot of people wonder about that and ask me questions. I think you should probably be worried about something else, but that's a question I get. That's a thing that I get, especially on my Twitter account. Like, is it for clout? Like, you can't win. If I don't post her, and then I'm not respecting my relationship. This is the thing about haters. You can't win with haters, which is why I really don't care about them. If I don't post my girl, then I'm not respecting my relationship, right? And I'm not having my receipts, right? If I post her, then I'm posting her for clout, and I'm doing it to boost my brand. Like, you can't win with this shit with people who are losers. All right. And so I'm not trying to win in that sense, because there is no, I'm just the way you win is you don't play that game. So I do whatever I want. But in that process, and posting some of the things like things about division of labor, like the mere idea that my attractive girl would make me a sandwich or bring me a coffee like today, the mere idea is offensive to certain women out there, and men too, by the way. But the men that's offensive to are the white knights and the dorks who are trying to get the women who are saying that they're offended at the idea of making a sandwich for a guy, the idea of getting something for their guy, right? Like, that doesn't imply that I don't get and do things for her. I do things for her all the time. You know what I mean? And generally, my channel is not going to be displaying my personal relationship. This is a very rare thing, and I'm going to be talking about that. But I'm addressing it now, right? And so, like, it's like people who are unhappy and who are unwilling to take accountability for their unhappiness and learn a different way, there's nothing that is going to please them. They're going to have criticisms no matter what happens, unless it fits their cute little safe world theory of how they think things should go, how they think a woman should be, how they think a man should be. And if I act a little bit too masculine, or if I act a little bit too one way or the other, or whatever, they're going to be upset about that. If my girl does something for me, anything, and I share that, or people find out about it, wow, and in some cases, if I do things for my girl, there's a lot of you guys who will be like, oh, well, something's wrong with him, and it's because you guys are dorks. Not you guys listen to me right now necessarily, but the people who do that are dorks. You're having shitty relationships. All right. You're not doing well. Okay. You're capping, you're coping, you're pretending to be happy. You're pretending to have your shit together and you don't. And that's where I get to this point, and I had this conversation a few times with people. I am more qualified to tell you unhappy people to shut the fuck up and to listen to what I say than it's to a point where I'm overqualified, where it's a waste of time for me to even tell those people. I am overqualified at this point to tell all the dorks who are triggered by my video on this, or triggered by my post where my girl made me a sandwich, or triggered when my girl handed me a coffee earlier. All right. she came back from running some errands, like, I am overqualified to tell you dorks to go fuck off unless you're willing to listen to what I'm saying and what I'm doing here. So many of these dudes are failing. Instead of asking me questions like, hey, bro, you have thousands of people who you've helped have happy sex lives, happy dating lives, happy relationships. Maybe how do I do that? Where am I going wrong? Instead of doing that, some of y'all have shit to say. You know what I mean? And I'm overqualified to tell you to pound sand. So overqualified, in fact, that I'm mostly going to ignore you. Right. And so that's to anybody who's been triggered by my stuff. Shut the fuck up and listen to my shit, because I know what I'm doing. Right. And if it's not my own relationships that's going to tell you that, because that's anecdotal. That's my scenario with my girl. And quite frankly, I want to keep that stuff private. You know what I mean? That's not for public consumption. That's not for me to parade around for social proof or clout for my brand. I don't want to be a part of that. But I am helping men and women in, at this point, thousands of people. All right. And they're doing better. They're getting success. I'm helping people with inner game. I'm helping people with their frame. I offer so much shit for free in that area that it's boggling. I have people who go to help me with some marketing, and somebody goes, you offer all this crap. Like, you offer all the answers. You offer a lot of stuff just on your channel. I've been binge watching your channel. You offer, yeah, exactly. Because I genuinely want to help people. I genuinely give a shit about you guys who want to do the work, who want to be happy. I think relationships are broken, and I want to help people fix their personal situations. And if I can do that through my content, I'm going to, right? And through my products, through my courses. I'm passionate about doing that. And it's a genuine thing. You guys who have something to fucking say, you're not doing better than me. And you're not doing better than my clients. You're not even doing better than you were when you yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So, like, how about just fuck off or stick around and learn something? You know, you're still welcome here if you're willing to bag your ego. All right. And so that's that. But why am I mentioning that? White knights. So having all this stuff out there, this is how divisive this shit can get. And this is how bad it is. This is how bad the simpery is. You guys want to know why women are broken nowadays, why they act that way? Well, guys, a lot of you guys, a lot of men are broken as well. And they're really they're supporting the bad behavior that we criticize on women. The male white knight virus and simpery is so toxic and poisonous that is what is supporting that behavior. Girls are going to do what they feel like they're getting results with. When they have an army, a battalions, brigades of simps and white knights behind them, jerking their egos for every stupid thing they say, just because they got a pair of tits or what, ass and V, right? Like, they're just going to say and do whatever they can for that attention. They're going to agree. They're going to suck the titty of whatever these girls have to say. And you know what? That's why they do it. If girls didn't get the feeling, even though they're not really getting results, because they're by and large, a lot of girls who are saying and doing a lot of different things, they're not, it works against them because they end up not getting results in their life. They end up unhappy, and they don't know why they're unhappy, because the social environment has all of these people telling them that they're wonderful and they're good, no matter what bullshit they do and no matter what bullshit comes out their mouth. That's not good. You know what I mean? Like, if there's one guy that says, hey, honey, you probably shouldn't, that's really, it's really unpleasant to be around you when you act this way. Like, you have a really bad attitude. Maybe, whatever. Maybe you should be more pleasant, right? To people. All she has to do is mute that guy and degrade him in the process. And then look towards the horizon line of simps and simpery and get, oh, you're great, you're wonderful, you're cute, you know, and it doesn't even matter like what age, where they're at. I mean, you guys talk about post-wall women. A post-wall woman who's banged up, overweight, and bad, toxic in her behavior, you know, crappy mindset, crappy life, can create an account, jump on the internet, and she still will get dudes in her DMs, in her comment section. She will get those thirsty dudes, which is an army of you motherfuckers. And it's more you than dudes who have their shit together, who have a masculine frame, and who can actually offer a woman something else besides stroking their ego. You know, and it's and that's the problem. That's what goes on, you know. And if until that is a counter narrative against that, you're always going to have a subset of women acting the way that you guys complain about, and that I complain about too, quite frankly, with what I see out there. Right. And so what do we do, right? But here's just an example of it, like how far it goes. I mean, and I'm going to do a separate show on the bullshit that dudes send into girls' DMs, because I know some of you guys are culprits. Some of you guys send the worst game bullshit into girls' messages and DMs. You have the worst way of approaching women. And then you come to the internet and you bitch and cry about how women are this and that, and they don't like you and this and that. Of course they don't like you. You're not approaching them in an attractive way. You're not even approaching them in a respectful way. You know what I mean? And this is why I teach what I teach. So I'm going to make dudes better who want to learn how, right? But what do you expect? Even if you do approach her in a respectful or good way and you get shot down, yeah, of course, because she's got an army of weirdos who've tried to approach her 20 plus times that day. You're just the 19th guy of the day to try to send her a DM or approach her. And even if you're respectful, she doesn't, at that point, it's hard for her to separate who is respectful and who isn't, because, a lot of these guys, a lot of these simps, a lot of these losers are very deceptive too. They're conniving. They're a little wily, right? They can come in there and slide in there and come across as nice and then flip on a dime. You know what I mean? As soon as they don't get their way. And that's where, let's get into white knighting for a second. You know what I mean? Thank you, sir. Thank you, kind sir. Make sure you guys check out Come On Man podcast. Paul has been building that since the beginning, and I've been supporting him since then, because he's a good dude. So thank you, sir. And so this little post, right? This guy, so some stranger who lives in another country gets on my page and is like, yeah, the cops are, and of course he has no idea like where I live or any of this stuff, right? He just knows because I'm in Michigan, because I've said it before. So he clearly watches my content, or he did some research. And so this dude is so butthurt that I have an attractive girlfriend. Like, he can't figure it out because, right, I am the antithesis of these white knight simping loser weak little boys who cry on the internet and try to qualify to girls by telling them how great they are for their shitty behavior. I'm the antithesis of that. I am the anti-simp, all right, from their standards. So when they see me with a girlfriend, and could have been this one, could have been any of my last ones too. It's not, it's not like it doesn't matter necessarily. They see me with somebody, they see me happy, they see things going well, right? Or what appears to be that way. They can't handle it. They lose their shit. They stalk my girlfriend. They'll stalk my stuff. They will have to block them on multiple platforms because their world falls apart, because their white knighting and simping for women hasn't paid off. So this dude from another country, he puts a bunch of messages of how people are going to be after me, like in a bunch of threats. the cops are looking for me and all this stuff. Bro, like, I know police. I'm not doing anything. I'm a military guy. I have a security clearance. This is not, I'm not, like, it's unreal, right? There's nothing going on. And if anyone thinks there is, come on over, right? Like, I mean, it's invite the police over. It's fine. I'm friends with cops. Like, it's not a problem. Okay. And, and yet, he sends these messages, right? He obviously has something very wrong with him, maybe mental health, but it's not just an attack on this guy, by the way, because you'll hear the rest of it. So, so I block him, right? He's now she's trying to hit my girl up on her stuff. And she's hitting up her family, people that he can find, that she has family members, any friends he can find on the internet. This guy is trying to hit these people up to try to get information about her, to try to get information about me, right? So now we're getting into harassment, right? She sends a message that just says, hey, like, because his whole thing is, oh, I know you must be in this abusive relationship, so I'm gonna get you out of this abusive relationship you're in. So this guy who doesn't know my girlfriend, doesn't know me, never met us before in their whole entire life, he's gonna rescue my girlfriend from her abusive relationship because she made me a sandwich. That's like literally what we're dealing with right now, because that's the post he posted on, right? So because she did something nice for me, made me a sandwich because I'm working my ass off for that day, and she was being a good girlfriend, that means that she must be in an abusive relationship. He's going to save her. And I'm sure he has dreams about what happens then. Maybe she'll run off into the sunset for thank you for saving me. Oh, my white knight in shining armor. And then she'll run off into the sunset with this mentally unstable person, right? I'm guessing that's what the image is. And so she sends a message saying, hey, I'm not being abused. I'm in a relationship. Things are good. Please stop contacting me, and please stop contacting my family and people that I know. And then she blocks him. He then flips it into contacting all these people, saying that we're bad people. She's a bitch. She's this. She's a slut. Like, she's all of the bad words now. Okay. Because she is not letting him, with his niceness and his benevolence and his ability, his heroic deeds. He's not letting his heroism, as a word, maybe somebody tell me in the chat, what's a word here I could use? He's not letting him save her with his heroic deeds. So she must be a bleep, 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 every name in the book. All right. So this is the thing about white knights. And for my girls listening, this is why you cannot trust the white knights, and you cannot trust the simps. All right. Because they are really only qualifying to you and telling you everything that you want to hear, because that makes them feel good. And it's a covert contract that is going to pay off for them. Now, maybe being nice to all and simping for a bunch of girls on the internet pays off when the one and only soulmate finds them or whatever, right? Maybe that's the image, and maybe it's not just specifically you. But at the end of the day, it's in hopes for a payoff. And when that payoff isn't there, then this is what the nature of a covert contract. And some of these covert contracts are dangerous. Some of these incels the incels that do dangerous things start off as white knights. They start off as simps a lot of times. And when their simping and their white knighting doesn't pay off, then they turn on the girls. All right. Then they get violent. Then they get abusive. And I'll use the word abusive in this sense, in their language and their treatment. If there was a girl who was stupid enough to leave her boyfriend or situation or whatever and go with the white knight that's trying to rescue her, it wouldn't be the happy ride into the sunset situation that I'm sure that white knight thinks it would be, because it's all of that guy's insecurities and problems and mental instability would then catch up in the relationship. And then that guy will be the abusive guy in the relationship as soon as he doesn't get his way, as soon as he gets a little retroactive jealousy because he heard she slept with, a guy that was taller than him, or a guy that had, had something that he didn't have, right? As soon as, she acts a little bit out of pocket or is upset that day or really doesn't want to do whatever he thinks he should do, then that simping will flip and he will turn into the abusive partner. How do I know this? Because I know a lot of women I've known a lot of women in the past, and to include my current girlfriend, who as soon as she doesn't give these guys a chance, right? And as soon as it becomes evident that they are not getting anywhere, they always flip it into attacks on her and toxic and abusive attacks, always. So these white knights, these losers, are not saving the women that a lot of the women want to, act like, that these are good guys. That's not what's happening. These guys are dangerous people sometimes. So this guy, I mean, think about how crazy that is, to think you're going to rescue someone because you think she's pretty on the internet, and because I maybe resemble a guy that beat him up in high school or something. I don't know. Or maybe I'm the cartoon character of the masculine character that he thinks is the problem with the world. You know what I mean? And he thinks he's Super Mario Brothers rescuing the princess right now on some girl he doesn't know. Think about how fucking crazy that is. But this isn't just this one guy. This happens all the time. All right. And so if it didn't happen in such great numbers, I probably would not even tell the story. And so then this guy goes to the point of calling the police to make a report that he filed a missing persons and a kidnapping report on my girlfriend. That's what he filed with the state police, because of course he doesn't know where I'm at. And so then the state does their due diligence to track down where her mom lives and of course, no, she's not kidnapped, right? Like, getting all that stuff. And I don't mind the police doing due diligence. That's fine. But even the cop, I'm going to have to talk to this cop. So if you listen to my shit, bro, we're going to have a conversation like really soon. Even the cops that shows up, which I want them to show up. Please show up to my house, because it's fine. Like, have a coffee and then hang out for a little bit and go. Like, I don't have any issue with cops, man. You guys are doing your jobs. It's good. I appreciate it. But here's what I didn't appreciate, though. She tells the dude, like, hey, bro, like, I'm good. Like, I'm, he's working right now. I'm here hanging out. Like, we're good. I'm having a good time, whatever. And I understand doing a little due diligence and digging, but you need better interrogation techniques, bro. Number one. And I can help you with that. Okay. Because guess what? I happen to be an expert in that when it comes to, persuasive techniques. Okay. And I'm trained with interrogators. So you need help, come see me. But, this guy's like, I don't know if I believe you. All this bullshit to my girlfriend for what reason? Like, it's not like she's sitting here looking like an abuse victim. I mean, anybody who walks into this house are pretty much like, okay, whoever's here is pretty happy, so that's the line of questioning. Now I understand he's got to dig a little bit. He's not going to be like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Huh? Okay. So dig a little bit, but she's assuring him all of these things. But she then tells him, hey, there's this guy, there's a person that's been stalking my social media. The guy is harassing us, and this is part of the harassment. Okay, cool. Well, if you're being abused, you call me and let me. Gives her his phone number. What the fuck? She just told you that this dude is harassing her and her dude, right? And that these are false reports. There was never like, oh, all right, well, let's see if we could do something about that. Let's see if we can do something about the actual harassment you're fucking receiving right now. And the action. No. Know why? Because that's not rescuing the damsel in distress. That doesn't fit the white knight narrative of this dude who I'm going to have some words with very soon. All right. Guys, I hope to God you are watching me right now and you can call me and call my number so we can have a conversation, because either I'm misunderstanding how that conversation went based on what she's telling me, or that's not good, right? This dude had an image in his head that he was going to save a pretty girl. I mean, I'm sure he's just responding to the call, and then the pretty girl answers, and it's like, oh, okay, well, let me focus my attention on saving the girl from the potential evil boyfriend. And these cops do go to domestic disputes all the time where there is an evil boyfriend or husband. So I don't fault him that bad, because I understand that's like what he's running into a lot. But once that it becomes real obvious that that's not what's happening, there's no, okay, like, all right, let's, you are being harassed then. This is part of harassment. Let me log that into the reports. Let's do some due diligence there. So maybe this harassment doesn't continue. That part wasn't done. Why? Because dude's simp. Dude's white knight. That's why. Guys who don't know better, which I'm going to say this guy doesn't, and I have compassion for him, and we're going to have a conversation about it, but he didn't know any better. He was falling to his male default mechanism, which is to protect the women, right? That'll get you in trouble, man, even as a cop. How many domestic disputes are you showing up to as a cop where the girl is also to blame and at fault? You can't have that bias as much as your instincts tell you to have it. You can't have that. There's a lot of false reports. There's a lot of women abusing men, as well as there are men abusing women. And there's a lot of women abusing children. You know what I mean? And if you show up as a law enforcement officer with a bias because you're a white knight and you suck with women, I don't know if that's this guy or not, but if that's, if that's how you're showing up, that's going to bias you to your reporting. And this is why situations can be very dangerous for men. And the more masculine or alpha you appear to be, the more you have to protect yourself from these dangerous scenarios, because you can have authority figures come in who are male, responding to a false report or responding to a situation that got divisive, and they're putting you in cuffs. They're taking you to jail. They're ruining your life because somebody lied, because somebody hashtag me too to you and it wasn't a valid complaint, or because, you let yourself get into a toxic, let's say a toxic relationship with a woman who gets divisive and you've let things go too far. And now next thing you know, she's the one, she's making false complaints, and they're not going to believe you. They won't believe you. My girlfriend sat there and told this dude and walked away from the house to tell a dude, like, hey, we got 3 cars here and a motorcycle. I can escape if I want to. I'm not trapped. We're hanging. We're fine. Everything is good. This guy, there's an internet guy, though, who's harassing us. She told him however many ways she could tell him. And this motherfucker, like, are you sure? I don't know. I don't know that I believe you. Well, here's my phone number. That's his answer. Like, dudes have a dream. Was it Mario Brothers, guys? Was it Nintendo, to save the princess? Is that what it was? Like, I know this is part of our firmware to want to save the baby maker. That's been around for longer than technology. I realize that, but was it Nintendo that did this to you guys? Where you just have to save women? Like, that's like such a drive for you that you won't even look at reality. You won't even look at what the fuck's going on around you, that you'll ruin your life. You'll ruin your career. I'm not going to ruin this cop's career or even attempts to. I met him, actually. He's a good person. He's just wrong here. And so we're going to have a talk about that. But, like, come on, man. What the fuck is wrong with you people? And I'm so not, like, I've been so separated from any of that behavior since I was in high school that it's like crazy to me that dudes are like this. Like, why are you like this? Watch my channel. Stop being fucking like this. Like, God. So anyway, that's the story. That's what I'm sharing. This is the problem, man. This is the problem. This is why masculinity is under attack. Like literally the dudes who should be helping things, right? Like even down to law enforcement officers doing their due diligence, and who should have had the wherewithal once it was sort of vetted out that, okay, this is not the situation. And when she's telling him this, you would think he would say, well, okay, let me look into that. Let me see what this dude's been doing. Do you have any messages? Like, if I'll send information up. So if he continues to try to harass you guys, that we do something about it. They'll get to that point. Don't worry, because I'll have to make it happen. But it's like that should have been the answer, not giving her your phone number. Like you want to let her know she can call the station and give them. I understand that, but it's like you call me in case you change your mind. If anything is really going on, like I'll come save you. Like, come on, bro. Come on. For real. So anyways, that's story time for white knights. And we're going to talk about that more in another show, but that's the white knight shit. And that's why things are the way they are. Things are so effed up because it's not, girls do bad behaviors, but a lot of times those girls are being taught that that's what's supposed to happen. That's what's going to work for them. They're being taught that by other women, and they're being sent that message by men who are afraid to say, no, that's not how things should go. And not only that, these are men who want to slit their own wrist for a pretty girl. These are men who want to sacrifice themselves for a pretty girl. And it's not about like self-sacrifice even as being a problem. It's a covert contract of self-sacrifice. They want to sacrifice themselves for a girl. And when the girl doesn't fit their narrative, when a girl says, I don't need your help, Mr. White Knight, but thank you, you're a bad person, or I don't believe you, or you mean I can't be a hero right now? How dare you ruin my dreams, young lady, of me being a hero? I'm going to call you names now. I'm going to, spread a smear campaign about you. I'm going to harass you. I'm going to not, try to do anything about the harassment and the false reporting. I'm instead going to say, you give me a call just in case. Like, that's the bullshit. And I'm the big mean guy because I don't white knight like they do, and I'm not a simp like they are. So then I'm the big mean guy. The Andrew Tates of the world and his brother, they're the big mean guys. The Red Bill guys are the big mean guys, right? Like, the alpha male in the gym's the big mean guy. These big mean abusive guys, it's fucking bullshit. Right? It's absolute trash. Okay, I just spent an hour talking about that. What the fuck's wrong with me? So anyway, it's just trash, man. It's a trash narrative. Okay, it's absolute trash. And so, yeah, and for my friend officer, I actually like the guy as a person. I've met him. Okay, I know this guy, but it's like, bro, obviously you're fucked up. Obviously you're wrong here. And this is what happens, dude. And this is why what I'm doing with you guys to help, whether you're in any of my courses or not, I'm helping guys get better in their relationships and better with women. Guys who have healthy relationships with women don't simp and white knight like this. There may be a degree of wanting to rescue, somebody who's weaker. That's kind of a hero complex thing. I understand that. I feel compelled to rescue or help people who are weaker than I am. You know what I mean? That puts me in the military. You know what I mean? I get that, but I'm not. That's the big difference between having that and taking it to the point of white knighting or simping, right? Where you're in a covert contract where if the person doesn't do what you want and doesn't fit your narrative to how they think the world works, if you're not a damsel in distress, or if the boyfriend isn't the abuser, or if they're in a happy situation, whatever it may be, then you're going to become unhinged. Like the white knight and the simp loses their shit when they realize that their work isn't paying off. when their narrative's challenged, they will attack the girl. Even if it's subtly, like this cop and these other guys are basically calling this girl, my girlfriend, a liar to a degree, you know, and also talk about disrespectful. Like, she's not smart enough or strong enough to make her own decisions, right? And to, you know, you got to step in. You know, she's not smart enough or strong enough to say, hey, like that, you know, whatever, this is what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, and I get it. People in abusive relationships aren't always going to do that, but there's a way to figure that out, and that's not the way. You know what I mean? And so that's the crazy part. That's the craziness, is it wasn't done appropriately, right? That's not even done. It comes down the damn cops simping when he shows up. But let that be a lesson to you guys, man. What if this was false? What if it was, you know, your house and you were in a toxic relationship with a borderline personality disordered person, and she was breaking shit around your house, and you were, you know, having to hold or restrain her hands from her breaking your things, or hit or punch or kick you. The cops are called. What do you think is going to happen when they show up? Which is why the answer is for you to leave the house, right? Not to do those things. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think she's going to get going? She thinks she's going to go to jail? Sometimes they do. Sometimes you get you get investigators, you get cops that show up who have a really good head on their shoulders, and they've seen enough. They've seen both sides. You get that. But what if these people showed up with their mental framework, hoping to save somebody, hoping to be Super Mario Brother and Luigi for the day to save the princess? What happens then? You're going to fucking jail. You know what I mean? You're facing abuse charges. You're facing getting fired from a job. You're facing losing your business, losing your clientele. You're facing abuse, ostracization, and all kinds of problems, because white knights out there will turn against you when you're a masculine person. When you're we'll say alpha male, when you're a masculine male, whatever, they will turn against you. They will come after you. That's why, because you represent something that threatens them, and they're not successful. So they're taking it out on you. And so that's the lesson here. And we're going to talk about it in a different way next week, because we're going to talk about some of the goofy shit you guys send in girls' DMs, and why you can't get too angry at women for their reaction to some of the things that's out there, because it's pretty bad. Now let's talk about chores and women doing their chores, right? Let's talk about it. And of course, maybe men doing their chores too, man. Who knows? What's this going to be about today? So we're going to talk about division of labor. All right. So now we're getting into the next segment. If you guys got questions, right, go ahead and throw a super chat in there, because what that does is it helps my algorithms. If you guys haven't liked this video yet, you need to hit that like button. Look, what I'm teaching guys here is a counter narrative to what is popular, but that will save your ass and will save people's relationships. It's helpful to women. It's helpful to men. What I'm talking about, whether you fully agree with everything or not, is what is going to help people do better. And that is why algorithms are not friendly to my channel and to anything that I say, and it doesn't matter how I say it. All right. So I need your help. And without you putting that like down for the free content you're getting, throwing a comment in every now and then into even just the comment section later, or, you know, super chats help too. Get a question answered. It's not about the money. It's about the algorithms. That's how I beat the censorship. You know, there's key words that as soon as I say them, and it's not a swear word, as soon as I say them, that indicates I'm in support of anything masculine. And if I'm in support, if I'm anywhere in a direction against the common narrative of how relationships and sexual dynamics should work, it puts me into no man's land of algorithms. That's how this works. And so only through your help can we change that. All right. Exactly. Yeah, you know exactly. The cop is trying to get in with your girl and you about to straighten it out. Yes, yes, I am. All right. So now on to this topic here. All right. So let's talk about division of labor. All right. Doing things around the house, doing chores, doing things for girls, doing things for their men, men doing things for their women. Let's talk about how that should go, because and we're going to break down an article in order to do it. There's a really good article in Slate of all things, by Christina Summers, whoever that is, but a woman. And it was written a while ago. Okay, but it's relevant today. So let's and the article starts off, it has a guy in a field looking like kind of somewhat masculine guy, and the captions, and he's holding a bunch of brooms. And the caption says, "Dude, put the brooms down." All right. It's pretty funny. In fact, let me if you want to follow along, I will put the link in the chat to there. So there's the article that we're going to reference for today. It's in the chat now. So she starts off with, it may be gratifying for women to see their husbands loading the dishwasher or folding laundry, but is it sexy? Yes, according to many media stories. Men want more sex, do the laundry, was the headline of a 2009 report from CBS News. According to Naomi Wolf, research has shown that the most erotic thing a man can do for a woman is the dishes. Naomi Wolf has terrible advice and terrible takes on things, by the way. The worst than Naomi Wolf would be Sheryl Sandberg, the author of Lean In, agrees. Of course she does. Nothing is sexier, she says, than a man who wants to do his share of the housework. It may be counterintuitive, writes Sandberg, but the best way for a man to make a pass at his wife is to do the dishes. So anyway, this is the origin of my telling women to do the dishes, from the origin of my short. Sandberg urges readers to check out a fabulous little book called Porn for Women, produced by the Cambridge Women's Pornography Cooperative. It is full of images of hunky guys vacuuming, dusting, and cleaning the kitty litter. Oh boy. All right. So it is just pathetic the way that women will lie to women, isn't it? How come it's not a dork with a dad bod cleaning the kitty litter? Right? You know, I think that the hunky guy could be in a fireman outfit or sweeping the floor, and it would have the same effect on the women that might be looking at that, right? Anyway, but a new study in the so this is the narrative, right? Now, where does this come from? I don't know if it comes from this, but it just does give me a chance to shit all over the 5 love languages again, so I'm going to do it. The 5 love languages is not, I don't think it's the origin of chore play. Chore play, the idea that, you know, if you do chores, you know, your woman's going to find you more attractive. I think it's a feminine narrative, feminist rather narrative. We'll talk about where these two things come from. So first of all, this is why the 5 love languages is broken, because this assumes that relationships are an exchange, right, of labor and benefits. And so when you approach your relationship as an exchange of benefits, it, even if sex is involved in that relationship, it is a transactional relationship by nature. All right. The difference between a transactional relationship and one that's based in what we have called genuine desire is that transactional framework of a relationship is where basically you're keeping score. All right. You're looking at, am I getting the benefits from the labor I'm putting in? And she's looking at, am I getting the benefits for the effort I'm putting in? And it also assumes other myths like relationship equality, which does not exist. Okay. There's, it assumes you'll hear things like 50-50, right? Which assumes a division of labor of 50 and 50. And if it's not even like that, then there's an unfairness. Someone's getting a bad deal. All right. Now, in a transactional framework of a relationship, all right, the danger or the threat, the existential threat, when I say existential threat, I mean it's a threat to your existence, and therefore it brings up a lot of divisive feelings, anxiety, anger, in all kinds of, things. The existential threat in a transactional framework is that you are doing, somebody is getting something over on you, right? In other words, you're doing more than what you're getting in return. And if that's happening, then that is a threat. That's a threat to your existence. It's a threat for males, it's a threat to their paternity, maybe if they see, that understanding Brafalt's law. It's a threat to a woman, wanting to stay with you and wanting, if you feel like if you're not getting a good deal, you're getting raked over here. You know what I mean? It's a threat to a lot of things for a guy, threat to his ego, right? For a woman, it's a threat to, potential, um, losses and being seen as lower value and all of those things, which means she would lose a provider, would lose a father figure for her children, like all kinds of things in the hindbrain, instinctual brain that this is threatening to when you have a transactional framework of relationships, right? And so this assumes like, and this is the love with the love languages, it assumes that as the basis for the relationship, that the relationship is transactional. That's the assumption here. You got to look at what the assumptions are when people have a framework for what's going to work or what isn't in a relationship. And you have to look at what's behind, I say a framework, what are the sets of beliefs that a person has to have in order to think that these things would work, right? And so the sets of beliefs we're dealing with is that there has to be an even exchange of benefits for it to work, right? And what that then creates is a competition between the sexes to try to make this exchange of benefits to be even. Guys are trying to get more and put in less, and women are trying to get more and put in less. All right. So that becomes now the strategy with someone with a transactional mental framework of relationships, that relationships aren't about sex, relationships aren't about desire, relationships are about fill in the blank with whatever words, but what basically means an equal exchange between two people of benefits. When that is the framework that they're approaching relationships with, then it becomes, I can't let the other person, get more benefits than what I'm getting, because then it's going to be unfair. And if it's unfair, I'm going to be harmed somehow. That's what my hindbrain tells me. So I have to fight to make sure it's equal and fair. And the way that I can try to fight to make sure of that is to try to get the most I can for doing less. And so now you have men and women coming to relationships doing less, as little as they can, to try to get the most that they can. When you say 50-50, that's what that actually translates to in behavior, right? Not two people putting 100% effort in because they are desiring their partner, they care about their partner, and they want, they love their partner, right? Container word, but whatever. They have those feelings of love for their partner and they desire that person. They feel good making them feel good. They feel good making them, happy doing things for them, whatever it may be. And that other person feels good doing the same for them. Like, it's two people putting in so much value for each other that you can't measure it in the same way. Instead of that being the model, it's 50-50, which means, we got to compete somehow to make sure it's fair, and that's what ends up happening. That translates to this behavior Okay. And so when that's the behavior, it doesn't sound very good, does it? Doesn't when you have two different people trying to get away with the most amount of shit as possible, that's not a good framework for making something successful long term. It's a very good framework, though, for building divisiveness and building resentment and building a lack of gratitude and building, feelings of being injured by your partner and holding on to grudges. It's a real good recipe for that, which is why then when it turns into a divorce or a breakup a few years later, you have two people who hate each other and who are trying to harm each other now. Why do people try to harm each other on the way out of these relationships? They try to harm each other because that's a way of correcting what they see as an injustice. That injustice is that they put in a bunch of effort and stuff and didn't get back in return what was expected or agreed upon, or what their covert contract was in their head. And so now they feel that there's an injustice and that it's a righteous thing to do to harm their partners on the way out of the relationship, rather than take care of each other on the way out because you once cared for each other. That's what a transactional framework creates. These things, like doing chore play, the 5 love languages, assumes a transactional framework. The 5 love languages always turns into, I won't make it a whole thing on that because I've done tons of episodes on that. You can just search that. But it turns into a do a bunch of chores and buy a bunch of gifts for sex scenario. The guy wants sex, so he says physical touch is my love language. The guy usually also wants verbal affirmation. He wants his wife to desire him. She doesn't do those things. She withholds those things. Why? Because she perceives anything she does for him as a loss, and anything that she gets is the benefit. So, it's a cost benefit analysis, and anything she does to includes opening her legs is a cost. Right? That's how she perceives it in a transactional framework. Hey, the guy's perceiving it the same way too a lot of times. I'll tell you when it's not and when it's flipped. But for now, we'll say the guy is seeing it that way too. And so she's seeing, even sex as a cost. And so when he does chores, let's say, and how many dishes does he have to wash to get a blowjob, right? How many floors does he have to scrub to get doggy style? You get what I'm saying? Probably she's going to put a high price on that when she sees her sexual self as being a cost, isn't she? And so this is what ends up happening. Instead of sex being a thing that you share with your partner that bonds you two together, and that is a great experience, that is not only a primal, savage experience that you get to experience with this person that you're in desire for, that you're attracted to, but it's also something that bonds you together on an emotional level. Instead of seeing sex like that as something that should be given to your partner without question all the time from either side, instead of seeing it like that, it's seen as a cost by the woman, and it's seen as a benefit that the guy has to earn. And so 5 love languages plays into that narrative. All right. And it always turns into when this, and by the way, they did the research on the 5 love languages much later, much after millions of book copies were sold, right? And proved that it was bullshit. All right. And I talk about that in another thing, that it has been proven by research that desire and building happy relationships is not based on 5 love languages, right? Or anything about that. It's all barking up the wrong tree. Why did people love that so much, though? Why did people love the 5 love languages so much? Because it falls in line with your social conditioning of a transactional framework for a relationship where you are providing benefits to each other at a cost. All right. And that's why you're in a relationship for an exchange of benefits, and the efforts and stuff you put in is costing you something, and the benefits you get are the gain. And then it turns into is two people, especially when the emotions start to go away past the honeymoon phase, right? It turns into two people trying to win. Instead of surrendering to the relationship and being together as one union of two people who are in desire for each other and care about each other and love each other, it turns into two people trying to win. All right. And that's why there's so much divisiveness when we have these conversation about gender roles, about male and female roles in relationships, because women are saying that when I say, your girl should do the dishes for you, millions of women out there go, that is a cost to me if I do that for him. What am I getting in return? Well, there's no talk about what he's doing in return. So this is abusive. See, now what happens with the word abuse now? So abuse has been now turned into a container word. Abuse doesn't mean anything anymore. It used to mean something. Now it doesn't mean anything, which is sad because there are women out there and men and children who are legitimately abused. And now you have women out there and Karens saying, oh, my man was abusive. My man was a narcissist. My last ex was abusive. Why? Because he, he said no to you. Like he didn't let you get your way all the time. Like, why was he abusive? Because you guys got in toxic arguments that you participated in and were in fact more toxic in, or because you got angry once because you were doing shitty things that would make any human being angry. He was abusive. You see what I mean? Now the word abuse is polluted. Now the word abuse is no longer what it should mean, which is causing harm and danger to somebody else, right? Now abuse is anything that I didn't like from my partner, particularly anything a man does that a woman doesn't like is labeled as abuse. So that's where we're at. Well, women see it. Not all women, obviously. Some of you guys are listening to me right now and you're great. But a lot of women see it though as this, if I'm being said I need to do the dishes and he's not saying that I'm getting something in return for the dishes, then that must mean he is an abusive person, because it would be abusive for me to cost myself effort without a return of something else from him. See what I mean? And why do I market it like that divisively? Because I'm not trying to make fucking friends. That's why. I don't give a shit. You're either going to listen to me and do better, or you're going to fuck off. That's kind of been my mentality. All right. And so I think there's enough people out there to support what I'm doing that want to do better, where maybe it won't be the largest number of the population. But boy, by the time I finally take my last breath, I'd like everybody to have at least heard of this, of the model that I'm expressing, at least heard of neurobehavioral conditioning for mental health. I want people at least heard of it, even if they're going to be stuck in their little narrative and their stuff, right? Because there's enough people out there who will take the help. For every person out there that isn't going to help themselves and isn't going to listen to me, there's somebody else out there. And that's why I do it. So I'm not trying to make friends. You're either going to listen or you're not. But so, at any rate, that's a transactional model. Okay. Chore play. I'm going to do chores, because that's sexy. Carol Sandburn said so. Naomi Wolf said so. That's because they're feminists. And what feminists are trying, their model for relationships is transactional. Feminists, feminism and feminists are trying to gain power for women at the expense of men, basically, and everybody else. That was the strategy that they had to employ to start to be treated fairly. There were times in our history where women were not treated fairly given the economic marketplace and things that were happening, right? So there were times where women weren't treated fairly and where, having a female positive supportive narrative was definitely a necessary thing. Sometimes today there's situations where we need to have that, but there's also situations where we need to have more of a male positive supportive thing. Anytime that somebody is having their rights or their rights jeopardized or fairness is an issue, we need to have a voice for that. It doesn't matter whether they're male, female, or what their gender identity is for that matter, or what their sexual preference, at that point, right? But we're not having a push towards fairness, right? And we're certainly not dealing with individuals in their lives and what's fair for the individual. We're having a push to gain power in society, in the marketplace. That's the push. And so by pushing this narrative of do more housework, and that's sexy, boys, we'll give you the sex if you do the more housework. That is just the deceptiveness of females in female groups, in women, in a marketplace where transactional relationships is the norm. So women are winning this transactional, because trust me, guys have had transactional mindset with relationships too in the past, and in the days where men had some places in the Middle East, for example, where men can put law and rule against women, like Sharia law. Men are winning that game. Okay, not saying that's good either, by the way. All right, but women are winning this in the sense that they're promoting this idea that, hey guys, if you do more of these transactional things, then you'll get what we want. You'll get what you want from your girl. And ultimately what guys want is the genuine desire, and they want, to have good sexual relationships with their women. And so women will then withhold sex. This is where withholding sex becomes the model. They will withhold the sex until the guy does enough of the chores and enough of the work and and that will never be enough. Like, that goalpost will continue to be moved. She won't appreciate him going to work every day, for example, in this model of transactional relationships. She won't appreciate him working and paying bills. She won't appreciate the things he does do. It'll never be enough. He has to come home after a 10-hour workday and take out the trash and mow the lawn or clean the dishes or cook whatever. It's your turn to cook tonight, that kind of stuff, when maybe her load isn't quite as much, but she can cry about it and talk about how stressed out she is. He just wants her to be emotionally stable. And you see, women can use their emotional well-being to hold the man hostage, and they can use their sexual availability to hold the man hostage in a transactional relationship. And that's what this mindset is. And this is promoting that, so that women have more power in their relationships. And what you end up with is a bonobo scenario. What you end up with is enslavement of men, right? And we see a lot of guys in marriages who are basically slaves. They're wage slaves. They're labor slaves at the house. They're babysitters for the kids. They're errand runners for the family. And they are getting very little in return. It's, may I have a crumb of pussy, please? It's that scenario, right? It's the orphan kid scenario. It's a orphan kid in a forced labor situation. It's the prisoner in a work camp situation. And guys, you put yourselves in it. You literally create the prison walls all by yourself. You do this by simping for women, by not fucking listening to me, by getting into relationships with women and not building those relationships based on desire and based on the emotions between you guys and the union, the bond, the emotional bond, that emotional bond, which happens through sex, and it happens through the time spent together, the good times, the closeness. It happens through the boundaries you set. And in fact, it happens through your frame, which, to reference the course and the free video I got on my sales page, go watch that later. The frame you have is what the relationship should be built on. And that's built on emotional buy-in and desire. Now it's two people fighting to make themselves each other happy against the world, against the bullshit that's outside of the relationship. Two people who are working together to benefit each other and not keeping score, not trying to rate that exchange, but just working hard to benefit each other because they care about each other, because they have emotions for each other. See, emotions are good. This is a lot of you guys who are like, I'm red pill, whatever it is. And let me write down the lists of things and right and take human emotion out of it because I'm autistic. Listen, all right, no offense if you're autistic, of course. Spurging out doesn't help you have good relationships with women, and you won't have frame there. All right. Just because you learn a few things from red pill dudes or whatever, or a few things even from me, right? Or a few things from a men's help space, that are more rules and listed things. Don't think that you can abandon the emotional aspect of relationships. If you are trying to abandon that and trying to get around that, you're just not going to do well. She should have a sexual attraction, a sexual desire, and an emotional attraction and desire towards you as a partner. Your behavior, what you do, and how you treat her, and how you are and how you show up starts actually there. Your market value, how you show up as a man, and how you treat her, and how you guys interact with one another. That is what builds that bond. The sex you're having and sharing together because you enjoy each other, not because it's a cost or part of an exchange. That's what builds the bond. Where you got two people who aren't keeping score, you're just working for each other. So I do things for my chick all the time. By the way, I cook all the time too, and I do dishes. I do all kinds of stuff, right? I'm cool with that. She does a lot to help me too. She thinks about me and thinks about taking care of me because she's conscientious. That's something I look for in a partner. She wouldn't be with me if she wasn't conscientious. If she wasn't conscientious and was just some pretty girl or whatever, I would be seeing other women. She wouldn't be with me the way that she is. Right? Because I'm not going to give my commitment to somebody who's not conscientious. But I'm also conscientious when it comes to her, and we offer value to each other, and we have a lot of gratitude for each other. So when I'm working and putting in hours and doing a lot of things, I'm not getting, a lot of bullshit about, oh, I need to do this thing and that thing. That's, I need to do my share of the vacuuming like that. That's crazy. When I'm doing the labor that I'm doing. And then if I see that something is just something she needs, something she's going to help her or whatever. Like she brought me coffee today. I bring her coffee. If I was out and she wouldn't even need to be doing housework, man. She could just be reading a book or dicking around at the house. She could be taking a nap for all I care about. I'm still going to bring her something, right? Because if she needs something, I'm picking something up, right? Why? Because we're in a relationship and we care about each other. That's how it should go. It's like really that simple, but that's because it's based in desire. Do you know what I mean? So when you have a relationship based in desire, you can abandon all of the self-protection. That goes back to my surrender video. If you haven't watched that, you need to watch that. Okay. You need to surrender to your relationship. And that includes you as a man. When I say surrender, I don't mean submit and be a submissive. I mean, stop trying to protect yourself once you realize that this person's a good fit. And even if you're not sure, you give them the chance to prove it, right? Or prove you wrong, because game, you have boundaries, you'll keep yourself safe, you're not going to die, right? You can allow yourself to have an emotional connection and have the masculinity and the wherewithal and the emotional self-control to handle it if she disappoints you, right? I'm not gonna be with women because they're just disappointing. That's basically what a lot of you guys say. I don't see what the point is. Yeah, okay. All right. That's because you're broken on the inside. That's why. That's why you say that shit on my. That's why you say that shit in my comment section, because you're fucking broken on the inside. You need to put yourself back together. I'm here to help you. That's why I'm here. All right. And that's why you listen to me, because you know I'm here to help you. But that stuff is BS. There's plenty of reasons to have relationships with anybody. Men, women, doesn't matter. And there's plenty of reasons to be in one when you have one that's based in desire and not just on transactional needs. Okay. And so that's that. Right. And that's what this chore play is all based on. Let's keep going. So couples in, I'm going to drink this coffee first. Couples in which men participate more in housework, typically done by women, report having sex less frequently. Similarly, couples in which men participate in more traditionally masculine tasks, such as yard work, paying bills, and auto maintenance, report higher sexual frequency. The three researchers looked at data from a nationally representative sample of 4,500 heterosexual married couples from the U.S. National Survey of Family and Households. This is the most recent large-scale study measuring household chores, sexual frequency, and marital satisfaction. All right. Skip ahead here to all right. So in marriages where women performed all the female tasks, and so I'm sure they had a way of trying to break this up. Cleaning, cooking, shopping, called core work by the researchers. So what they considered core work around the house, those couples had more sex than when the men carried out these traditionally female chores. And it was pretty significantly more, in marriages where men helped out but stuck to stereotypical male tasks, non-core work such as auto maintenance, yard work, bill paying, snow shoveling. Couples had more sex than when women performed the traditional male tasks. But as the research point out, even in marriages where men did 40% of the female chores, couples experienced substantially lower sexual frequency than households in which women performed all the core, typically female chores. Put simply, there appears to be an inverse relationship between husbands doing traditional female tasks and sexual frequency. So I'll keep coming back. I'll stop there. So that's what the data is showing with 4,500 couples. Now, this was done in the 90s, but they'll get into reasons why that still applies today. It's not like that much different. All right. Now, understand that, two things to keep in mind with this study, because a lot of people spurg out on this. The people that spurg out on this are generally not people who listen to me. They're people on, they're a lot of women, that are unhappy, spurg out. A lot of people with more of a modern relationship narrative freak out at the idea of women doing the traditionally female tasks and chores and men doing the traditionally masculine ones. Right. And maybe, so here's two things about it. One is it's a correlation. It's not proving causation. In other words, is it that the sexual desire was higher to begin with and the relationship built in desire caused women to do more female chores and men to do more male tasks? Was it the desire that would result in more sex, the cause of the chores being divvied up that way? Or was it the chores themselves that created the sexual dynamic in the relationship? That's what the study doesn't tell you, because that's not what the study can prove. That's not what it's designed to tell you, right? It just tells you a correlation. In other words, female chores, more women do more of the female chores and men do more of the male chores, that's more sex. Those couples are having more sex. Doesn't tell you why. That's the other thing. Doesn't tell you why that is. Do I think that, doing the dishes directly correlates to attraction or non-attraction? Not necessarily, okay, by themselves. What's behind it? That's what the study doesn't tell us, right? And we're going to get into that's where I'm going to help you here, all right? So, the research now, of course, when this comes out, what happens? What do you think happens? We'll do a quick little quiz. When this comes out, that in the houses where women did the work that were female chores, right? The feminine chores, sex was happening more. What do you think the assumption was from the people who have the feminist, conditioning and the gynocentric conditioning and that worldview, that safe world theory, that 50-50 and gender roles aren't real, all that kind of stuff? Well, what do you think happened? What do you think they immediately went and did? If you're saying that they immediately went and blamed the men for being abusive and coercive and taking more sex and forcing them to do chores, well, you would be right. So that was the immediate reaction to the study. When the data came out, because the data is not wrong. The data is the data. And so it makes me laugh when people want to argue that with me, because you're arguing with numbers that are real. You can't, that's not an argument. That's objective. That is concrete. There's no subjective thing here about the data. Okay. It's what's behind it that could be subjective, but the numbers are the numbers. So they immediately said, well, the numbers must be that way because these husbands are basically sexually assaulting their wives and forcing them into labor. That was pretty much what the immediate assumption. So notice that, of course, even in the 90s, the immediate assumption was men are bad and they must have done this. There's no way this could be true. Well, they ruled this out because wives in conventional marriages report similar levels of sexual satisfaction as those in more egalitarian marriages. So as lead author Sabino Cornrich notes, had satisfaction with sex been low but frequency high, then we could have suggested coercion, but we didn't find that. So in other words, it's not just the frequency of sex that was up, it was the satisfaction of the sex. And so if men were being coercive and forcing women into labor and into having sex with them, then there wouldn't, and it was, this divisive, abusive scenario that immediately people thought it must be that when this data came out. Well, then the reports wouldn't show that the sexual satisfaction was matching with the frequency. You wouldn't show high sexual satisfaction, right? The women would have low sexual satisfaction because they were being forced into it like little slaves. So that's not what it is. All right. So that's not what it is. So for them, those who want to argue that and who want to go there, and there were some, people who will try to do that, that's not at all what it is. Right. They also control for variables such as religion, gender, age, income, and participation in paid labor. If anything surprises us, author Julie Bryans told reporters, is how robust the connection was between traditional division of labor and sexual frequency. All right. So in other words, like even if the woman worked and was somebody who worked outside of the home, these rules still seem to apply. Right. So what could we say that means, right? Interesting, isn't it? So another criticism of the study was that, well, that happened in the 90s and husbands and wives are different today. But as Montclair State University sociologist told Live Science Today, today's younger generation is more comfortable with fluid definitions of gender. Gender roles around, but gender roles around housework and childcare have been slow to change. It's naive to think, It's naive to think that it hasn't changed a little bit in the last 20 years, but the latest research shows little change in husbands' participation in housework in the past decades. So sociologists refer to this lack of change as the stalled revolution. What is most striking about today's younger generation is not that men are adopting more fluid definitions of gender and becoming more engaged in core housework. It's that millions of fathers are not in the home at all. So here's what we're finding. That what are they saying there? Okay. And so what we're saying here is, with all of this gender fluid nonsense and not having defined division of labor, defined gender roles, what's happening is men are not being useful at all, or even seen as useful as men, or women are not even seeing men as useful to begin with. And so men are not in the homes at all. So here's the change. The change isn't in, as over the past 20, 30 years, we've evolved into this more fluid concept of gender roles, right? We haven't necessarily, gotten into and comfortable with those roles when it comes to this housework and child rearing and stuff. What's instead happened is we're not switching roles. We're not doing the roles at all. In other words, men are not even in the household. Like, they're single moms, right? Women are getting impregnated by guys, and they're not keeping the relationships. Men are not sticking around. Like, however way you want to look at it, people are getting pregnant outside of a stable home, and there isn't anybody doing the traditional roles because they're by themselves. That's what we're seeing more in terms of stats, and so that's the shift. The shift is in less dads, less fathers around. That's the shift. The shift isn't in the gender roles, because when you put them together, they tend to fall into these stats. Still apply, even though 20, 30 years ago was when the studies were done. They still apply today to those who are intact in the home. What's changed is less intact homes. That's what's changed. All right. So where did the myth originate about husbands who do laundry get more sex? The authors explain the misleading media accounts are based on research that failed to take into account how couples divide household chores. While it may be true that men helping around the house increases sexual frequency, how men help make the difference. So in other words, when the studies that show that men helping out more increases sexual frequency didn't divide up what those chores were, right? And so when they divided up by chores, guys who are helping more with the housework and in traditional role, are getting less sex. When guys are doing more of the masculine work, mowing the lawn, maintaining the car, shoveling the snow, they're getting more of the sex, right? All right. According to the authors, among heterosexual couples, expressions of sexual difference creates desire. So that makes sense, right? Women are attracted to men. Okay. I mean, some are attracted to women too, but for different, it's different. Trust me. When two girls are together, it's different. All right. When women are attracted to men, they're attracted to men, not a girl with a penis. All right. That's how when we're talking heterosexual couples, obviously, right? That's the way it is. So when the guy is expressing masculine traits and doing masculine things, that's more attractive. All right. Similarly, when a guy is being served and feels he's being served by his woman because she's doing more of the feminine things, that makes her more attractive. Makes sense, right? Gender-linked tasks are far more sexually charged than prominent egalitarians like Naomi Wolf or Sheryl Sandberg would have us believe. And this is a good point. Does this mean that husbands can behave like slobs and let wives do all the washing, cooking, cleaning, shopping? Definitely not. Authors warn that that a man who refuses to help out with chores is likely to create strife and conflict in the marriage. As with so many women working full time, what might be best for a couple's romantic life may be workable and unfair in real life. Well, and that's where things need to be worked out between individuals, right? Individuals are not statistics. Each couple will have to work it out for themselves. Exactly. Not an easy task. Egalitarian peer marriages where couples are all domestic tasks equally can be quite happy, reports authors, though they tend to take on a sibling-like tonality that undermines sexual desire. And there we go. So there is describing exactly what I said, the difference between transactional relationships and ones based in desire. All right. If you believe in true love, right, and desire and all that crap, some of you guys don't believe in that, but whatever. That maybe that's a container word, but it's describing relationships based in desire. That is not a pure marriage. Pure marriage meaning everything's 50-50, right? That's exactly what I said. An egalitarian pure marriage, right, where domestic tasks get divided equally. That is a recipe for disaster. Why disaster? Because it is a sibling-like tonality in the relationship. It undermines sexual desire. These are, your wife or your husband's your best friend, but you're not that attracted to each other. Those are those scenarios. These people may report some levels of happiness. I mean, they may even report maximum happiness, but reality is they're not getting their sex from their partner. They've either signed off or written off sex, become asexual, or are having sex outside of the relationship periodically in order to satisfy their needs. That is not a recipe for success. Okay, that is not a recipe for long term, because once that transactional nature of that relationship breaks down, which happens more frequently, and it didn't happen so frequently prior to the internet, but now women and men, but particularly women, can look on the internet and see all of the promises of something better outside of what they have. So if a girl is not in desire for her man and it's a exchange, well, what happens is she can find the better deal someplace else. And even if she's not going to behave like she's trying to do that, very few women are doing this. So let me just say this. Very few women are expressing their hypergamy in this way, where they're married and they're seeing better dudes out there. And so then that would offer them more in this transactional exchange. So they line it up with that dude and then they tell their current husband, you just don't offer me, as much as this guy can offer me. So I'm leaving you. And then they go to that guy. That does happen anecdotally, but that's not usually how that happens. All right. So hypergamy doesn't necessarily get expressed in that way, but how it does get expressed is they're in a transactional relationship, especially, and they're laboring. There's a cost for what they're getting, and they're seeing other people out there getting more for less cost, right? Then their emotional bond and their feelings towards their partner start to go down. They start to resent. They start to, not like him as much. And any desire that may have been there starts to erode too. And they find themselves in a position that they've put themselves in and that their hypergamous nature put them in, where they are depressive and unhappy in the transactional exchange they're in with this guy. And they perceive something is better out there. And they may not know the guy. They may not be actively searching for the guy, but they know it's out there, and they're now in a dead bedroom, dead relationship, and they are riding it out until they see that opportunity to leave. Or it's a cost benefit. They haven't left yet because it seems like the cost of leaving would be too great, versus the benefit of leaving. But once that flips around, they're out the door. I've talked to so many people who were in their 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s when the kids are grown up out of the house. The guy is near retirement or collecting a pension. And she realizes, wait a second, especially this one, this math problem. I'm 55 years old. I'm 60 years old. He's collecting his pension. He's collecting this. He works a part-time thing. I have this lifestyle. I don't work. The kids are growing up. I can take half of his money and a bunch of the assets and get money from that. So I can force the sale of the house, or I'm living in the house or whatever. Don't have to worry about the kids. And I can get paid. Now I can take not only half, but I also get to pay alimony for life. If I'm in certain states and I'm of a certain age, I'll get paid alimony for life. And I don't have to touch him or look at him or deal with him at all. What do you think they do? What do you think the choice is when they're in a transactional relationship and they've spent their time resenting their partner because other people have a better deal that they think they should have because their cost that they're and their effort they're putting into what they're getting back isn't as much as other people on the internet? What do you think happens when they get to that point? When they get to that point where they think they can exit and it'll benefit them more to exit than to stay, what do you think they're doing? That's how hypergamy shows up. Usually. Okay. It's not the gold digger that, no, that woman too probably spent time in counseling, probably spent time trying to figure out why she has no desire for her partner. and then the counselor was saying, you should do the 5 love languages or whatever nonsense they're telling her. And it's not working. There's no desire being built. And it gets to that point where it's, of course, for false law, dude, what else is she going to do? Right? She's going to do what benefits her the most. And that's the problem with transactional relationships. So I don't want to hear this. I know they said it in the article, and I'm sure in a study when they're a little bit younger and the kids are not born yet, or she's pregnant, that this peer marriage works and we're happy, even though we have abysmal sex lives. I'm sure that, that those people will tell me I'm stupid and they found the key to happiness, all this shit. Happiness for who, right? That woman who's getting drunk on boxed wine every night at 60 years, 61, 62 years old and having her new boyfriend over and retired and doesn't work and lives in a nice house and is collecting a pension from her husband. Okay. Because, she's living the life. She's having a great time. Okay. What about the guy? What about the guy that has to have his assets cut in half and now he's stuck paying her? It cuts into his quality of life. What about that exchange? Right. And now here's the other part too. I need to mention about transactional exchanges. And here's where the scam is. Okay. Women, a lot of times, whether they're trying to be divisive or not, are convincing their guys that there's desire there as part of this transactional exchange. They put desire on the transactional exchange list. All right. I'll be in desire when you do the things I need transactionally. I'll play the role, right? It's negotiated desire, which isn't true desire. Well, what happens is in this negotiated desire, especially in the beginning of the relationship, where she's always putting out more expecting this return on her investment later. See that effort and that cost she puts out becomes less and less over time. That's the nature of it. But what happens is because she's showing desire, which is what he wants, major core primal need, he ends up falling in desire for her. So what you end up with is a one-sided relationship where she is transactional and her desire is negotiated and he loves her. And this is where the guy will labor and labor and labor for her. This is where the guy will do anything and everything to include not lead his relationship, because anytime he tries to step up and do that, she squashes his nuts. Right? because we're in an equal 50-50 relationship, and you don't tell me what to do and all that bullshit, right? And so he's there and he is in desire, and he's effectively a slave and held hostage now emotionally. That's why the self-selection end it rates, take yourself out of the gene pool rates, are highest among men over 40 years old. Why do you think that is? A lot of them liked somebody, were in desire with somebody who had for a long time been transactional with them. A lot of you guys listening to me right now know what I'm talking about. And it's very unfortunate. And so I'm trying to prevent you all from going down that route. So let's see if their prescription is worth it. I don't even remember if it is. What's a couple to do? This new article is part of the solution. It's a helpful reminder that sexes are not interchangeable. Pretty nice of Slate to actually have this. Couples need to know this. The authors don't say so, but men and women taken as a group don't merely find conventional sex roles exciting. Many seem to like those traditional roles as well. Cheryl Mendelson, author of Home Comforts, The Art and Science of Keeping House, has a PhD in philosophy and a JD from Harvard Law, but she confesses to leading a secret life as an old-fashioned housewife. Interesting. So this woman with a PhD and a JD secretly is an old-fashioned housewife in her house. She probably can't tell her friends that because they would probably shame her for it. And this is the state we're in. That's why when I put that short out, people shit all over me thinking I'm a misogynist, right? She couldn't, even as a woman, say, my girl cannot make me a sandwich and I can't show my gratitude and post a photo of it and say, isn't she great, without white knights coming to the rescue. Cops coming over asking if she's been abused. Have you been abused? When you made that sandwich, were you being abused to make it? Well, I don't believe you. Here's my phone number. Wink, wink, my phone number in case you need something. Thanks, officer. I got my own handcuffs. We don't need yours. Okay. She adds that the pleasure and comfort of homemaking are central to my character. So here's a woman who is an author, a PhD, has a Juris Doctorate, sees that her identity as a woman is in part on how she keeps house. So she is taking on that role in the house, right? And she enjoys it and she embraces it. Few men view homemaking as central to their character, but millions of women do. So see, that's the thing. Men aren't usually going like, you better do this, but women see it that way. Like if somebody comes over, if you're living with a woman, you're married or you just cohabitating, and someone comes over and the house is a mess, your girl is going to be self-conscious about that. She's going to feel like, shit, I'm not, she feels like they're going to look at me as not keeping this house and being in a messy house. She'll be more self-conscious of that with you, living with you, than she would be on her own, in fact, right? And that's a fact because of how women identify with their femininity, right? Because housework and doing things like that is a expression of femininity. It's not by itself necessarily feminine. Vacuuming the floor isn't feminine by itself. It's just vacuuming the floor. But it's the expression of femininity is doing some of these things, these chores. Women like to feel feminine. They should, just like men like to feel masculine, working on a car or taking care of a car issue or, doing, mowing the lawn or taking care, doing some heavy lifting, repairing or fixing something around the house. Those aren't particularly masculine or feminine chores, but a man feels more masculine in that identity by doing it, and that's the difference. And that's not just going to be socially conditioned out so easily. Males are not the market for a family circle, better homes, a garden. So males are not the market for better homes and garden. A few months ago, I found myself at Calico Corners, a fabric store outside of DC. The shop was full of purposeful and engaged women busily looking for materials for window treatments and cushion fabrics. In the middle of the store were some easy chairs filled with a few dozen men waiting patiently to be released. Fuck. Wouldn't be me. But men have a far more tenuous relationship with housecraft than women. Some will read these generalizations and cry sexism or essentialism. So let's be clear about what these group comparisons mean. I am talking about statistical averages, not absolute. See, they got to put the caveat at the end here. Let's see what that says. Clearly, not all men and women embody the stereotypes of the blah. Not all women, guys, not all men, though they're not typical. There are women who dislike homemade, whatever. There are women who dislike effort too, right? So, all right, I'm not even going to bother to finish that reading the caveat that they have to put, so that people won't cry and cry to boycott their publication. Fucking right. So let me find something here to share, but something else I want to share with you guys. Okay, so here's a point I want to make here. Something I wrote. And so it's not really about who does the dishes. Okay, if you listen to all this and you thought women need to do the dishes or whatever, and that's what this is about, that's what that short's about. It's not really about that. All right. I've coached thousands of people to success, right? In dating, sex, and relationships. Some of these were stay-at-home dads who did housework and had working moms. All right. So we got to look at what is behind the study, not just the study. And really what is it is it's about the contextual framework around division of labor. All right. And so things we need to consider here is when guys were taking care of in those statistics, 4,500 couples, probably the men were taking care of not just the masculine tasks, but also the finances too, in a lot of cases. Now, I know they looked at when women were working as well, and they also would rather do, the feminine work or whatever. Still correlate. The correlations were still similar, but we got to look at the man. It's not saying the man is not contributing, right? So when women are threatened by this, what they're assuming is that they're going to be coming home from work and slaving around the house while the guy sits around and does nothing. Again, a transactional framework, right? The guy's not going to be sitting around and not contributing if he's in desire for his woman and working hard, and he aims to please her, right? And she should be aiming to please him as well if she's in desire. Okay, so she's going to enjoy doing, maybe not particularly enjoy certain housework, but she's going to at least enjoy the fact that she's going to feel valuable by doing things that are in feminine, that match a feminine identity for her man. See, when people surrender to their relationships, they tend to fall into what they're comfortable sex characteristically driven gender roles. They tend to do that. You know what I mean? But it's not about who does the dishes. It's about serving each other. And so when I said your woman should do the dishes for you, what I mean is that, well, if someone is offended by that, that's a red flag. Why is it offensive to say she should do the dishes for her man? Is it offensive if I say the man should, he should do the dishes for her? I don't think it's offensive to say it either way. Only people being offended by that are people that don't think that they should do things for a man. They don't think women should do things to make a man's life easier or happier. They don't think a woman should serve a man. both, and that's a problem because really both of them should be serving each other in their own ways. Both of them should be serving the relationship. The man should be serving her too. You know, if you approach a relationship where both of you are serving each other and trying to benefit each other because you enjoy you enjoy adding value to the other person's life, what you have is two people bringing value and adding value to each other instead of one person taking and the other person just giving and giving. When a woman is threatened by that, it's because she envisions giving and giving and giving value and just having some guy take, because that's the image that she's been sold on as what men do. Right. And some men do that too. And ironically, it's men that they've probably picked before because of their broken framework. Right. And so the thing is, it's what's behind it. It's what's behind the chores. It's not whether one chore is over another, but I would say that it's the contextual framework. If I'm leading my relationship and I choose to make breakfast, which I do all the time, and clean up afterwards, right? I'm doing that because I want to, because that's part of how I serve my relationship, and I enjoy doing that. I'm not doing that to get sex for my girl. I'll get sex anytime I want because she wants sex as much as I want sex. Saying I'll get it anytime I want isn't not misogynist. She'll get it anytime she wants to. Okay. It's like, it's not a transaction. When I do something like in my second video where I'm washing dishes after I made breakfast, you know what that is? That's a masculine guy or an alpha male or whatever word you want to use doing dishes that day. That's what that is, because I feel like, because I clean up after myself. That's why when I cook and do stuff. What's wrong with cleaning up after yourself? You should be cleaning up after yourself, right? That's pretty a common thing. But she does the dishes all the time. She does things for me all the time. She brings me things. She does a lot also, and she wants to do more. She feels good doing things, and she should. The point about your girl should do your dishes for you was really your girl should be wanting to serve you and not having this mindset of that serving a man is somehow misogynist, wrong, or abusive. That's what it is. And you guys should be serving each other. And if you're doing it under your leadership, you can put on a fucking apron and scrub the floors if you want. And it's under your leadership, and she's also contributing and doing things in the relationship. She's not losing her sexual attraction for you. That's not how that's going to work. It just so happened, though, that people associate certain chores and things with feelings of femininity or feelings of masculinity. So that's the things that they gravitate towards. So when two people are serving each other in a relationship, men will tend to gravitate more towards tasks that can be considered more masculine, and women will tend to gravitate more towards things that are considered more feminine. And they'll gravitate towards it naturally because it feels good for them and better for them to do that. If there's a car issue, my girl wants me to look at it because it makes her feel a lot better with me looking at it, right? Than her trying to do it herself. And quite frankly, that's a way I can serve her. I would rather look at it. I am not messing with the way the closet's organized to include my stuff because she is way better at it than I am. All right. She vacuums and does the floor and, does laundry, and all my stuff's hung up. Like my closet has never been more organized than when she organizes it. Why would I want to interrupt that? I'll go look at the car, now why? She is much more comfortable organizing the closet than she is working on the car. If the car's having an issue, or if their car needs to be looked at, or when it needs oil changed, or when it needs maintenance, right? And there's other things. And the thing is, we're not keeping score either. I don't care if I do more for her than what she does for me. And she doesn't care if she does more for me than I do for her on any given day. Because some days as a man, you're going to put out more for your girl, and you should. And some days you're going to put out less, and she's going to be putting out more that day. It doesn't, as long as no one is taking advantage of the other, then it's fine. And that you make sure of that by being in desire for each other. The recipe is to bang. The recipe is sex. Have frequent sex, have frequent time together, being close to one another, communicate with each other in healthy ways, and have frequent time doing things together that has nothing to do with labor and that has just simply to do with enjoying each other. All right. Having good boundaries. That's your list right there. All of those things build a framework where you won't have to keep score with each other because you'll be in desire. That's the answer. It's not about who does the fucking dishes. All right. It's about, the reason those things divvy up that way in a study is because of how people associate those things and how they feel about doing those things. That's why. And there's plenty of happy women who go to work like that PhD attorney and author, well-accomplished woman, does work, can command a lot of income, and would rather put on the apron when she gets home. That's pretty normal. And a lot of happy relationships where women work, that's exactly what happens. And the guy is providing value in his own right. Maybe her husband also is providing a bunch of value, that whatever those things are, and doing masculine roles too. And she feels good about that. So do what makes you feel good. Don't do what is going to make you a good boy for feminists. All right. Do what makes you feel good, and pick and serve your partner, and pick a woman who wants to do what makes her feel good and who's willing to serve you. That's the answer, is two people serving each other, right? That's what it's about. But as far as division of labor is concerned, it tends to divvy up with masculine and feminine chores. If you don't try to put any stipulation on it and just allow things to happen naturally, you'll find the man is doing more of the masculine related task and the woman is doing more of the feminine related task in heterosexual dynamics. That's just what you're going to find. That's what the studies show. The reason those relationships are more happy is because those people who fell into those things naturally were probably trying to serve each other and in the process and not control each other and not keep score. And so in the process of that, they fell into these roles and these things. It doesn't matter who does the dishes, who doesn't. They fell into it naturally because they were working to the benefit of the relationship and they were in desire for each other. And so by being in desire and not keeping score, that was a product. The chore divvying up was a product. We need to divvy up divisional labor like this and keep it 50-50 and egalitarian stuff, right? And I did the dishes last night, you do the dishes this night. That's a transactional framework. So those people have less sex. People in desire have more sex. People in desire last longer, are happier. People in transactions take advantage of each other and blow up. That's it. Time to look at chats. Let's see what we got. Paul, femininity is under attack. You basically got the police called on you because you wanted your woman to want to do homemaking things. Women get accolades for doing masculine characteristics these days. That is a very good point. That is a very good point from T Diamond there. Yeah, you know what? It's not just masculinity that's under attack. That's a very good point. It's traditional femininity is under attack. That's for sure. All right. Juan says, save yourself tons of RP spurging. Thank you very much, Juan. And ramboing. Ramboing. I love that word. By taking my advice and courses. Thank you. I got an I don't think so from Sarah. I don't know what you don't think so about, ma'am. I don't know, miss. You'll have to tell me what that means. I wasn't looking at the chat while I was talking. Super chat. I think a masculine chore is pest control in the house. So I'm turned off when a man says he's afraid of spiders, snakes, mice, etc. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong at what turns you off necessarily, right? Like that's just how you feel about it. But that's pretty normal because guys are seen as in a protector role, and it assumes, that's your monkey brain is going to respond better to a guy who's interested in protecting. And that's protecting the home, protecting you. That's protecting from, serious threats like home invasions, but also protecting from pests too, you know? So a guy who's afraid of like snakes and he's afraid of mice and won't deal with pests, yeah, it's going to be kind of unattractive, right? I mean, the main reason a girl calls you over, guys, is in order for you to kill the spider. You guys know that, right? You guys are there to kill spiders for her. T Diamond also says, thanks for the supers. I appreciate this, by the way. So your message is that men and women should have 69 relationships and not 50-50 relationships. Yes, exactly. Well, 69 is really just a novelty. They should just have lots of sex relationships and let the rest go. All right. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, he does. Ryan does explain this well. So do I. My model is basically we are converging evidence. The example I used was commander and first sergeant. He uses captain and first mate because he's Navy, but it's really the same model, and so it ends up working out. See what else we got. And so I'm glad you guys enjoyed my story for the first hour. And I think you're right. And that's the other part. I embrace that. If I'm not saying something, because most people are unhappy in relationships, right? And most people are divisive. And so if I'm not having haters, well, then that means I must be only promoting a narrative that is going to continue to help people be unhappy. The fact that I have haters is a message, right? Thanks, man. My muscles might throw you off, but he's got an in-depth look at human nature and emotions that most PhD therapists lack. Right. Well, therapists are being trained with a broken model, and that's why I got out of those programs and sought my education outside of traditional education for psychology. And that's why I don't have a doctorate, and I don't plan on getting one. So that is the end of this cast. Thank you very much. And like I said, like the video, help me out there. And if you're interested in actually holding frame and bettering your relationships and bettering your inner game, instead of doing and being, playing with the bullshit that's out there, that's causing people massive amounts of unhappiness, right? You want to start doing better. That's what I'm here for. You got links in the description. You got apexmindset.net with products you can jump on to help you with your inner game and programs for 60-day boot camp and challenge for your inner game. When that opens up again, right now it's not opening again until June. And right now my mastermind course is available to you guys. So I'm here for you guys if you're ready to make the change. Thanks again, and I'll catch you later.